Welcome to Around the Bend with Soki. In this episode, we're going up the Columbia River Gorge. We're Mike and Ramona, and Soki is our Alliance 385 FL. We're going to be traveling from Long Beach, Washington to the Dalles in Oregon at a harvest host. Our drive starts out on Route 101 to Astoria.
Better.
That didn't impress me any.
It's okay, man. A little noisy, but it's okay.
That guy revved up his engine as he went through it.
There is currently light traffic on your route.
Glad to hear that.
So within the first 20 minutes, we got the surprise of a tunnel. And as we wind along the seashore, it's not a bad ride. We start to get close to a bridge that goes across the Columbia River. You'll start to see it show up as we get closer. It goes across the river and then takes a very high rise over the river.
People trying to pass each other on the bridge.
All right,
Look at that.
people.
He's just hanging right there.
Does this bridge go straight up, or is that a building?
I don't know, man.
It's okay.
Yes, this bridge goes straight up. Has a very high bridge that allows sea-going, ocean-going vessels to go underneath without opening. And then when you get to the other side, it does an interesting right corkscrew back around underneath itself and back out on Route 30. So the other end of this bridge drops right into the City of Astoria, Oregon. It's a pretty good sized city, and it stretches along the river. So we wind up winding through the city streets, and it adds a bit of excitement as we go through some of the narrow streets. Traffic abounds, and we just have to weave our way through it. You might also notice that we're following some street rods. The city of Long Beach has a very large car show every year, the same time of year, and is literally packed with antique, classic, and street rod vehicles. Pretty neat to see. Now you get a pretty good look at how high this bridge actually was, and now we're all the way back down on a low level in the streets. When we first saw this, we had no idea that it could actually get all the way around and back underneath like it did.
have to take a left.
Turn left on Commercial Street.
I should have.
As soon as I get there.
It says no turn here.
Well, no, up there.
Oh, up there. I thought you were going on this way. Where the hell is they taking us? Do they realize we have a big camper in the back of this?
It's left turn only.
You got some people over here turning left too.
Yeah, it's a double. Everybody's turning left here.
He's turning left too, so this is going to be interesting. Why did they bring us right downtown?
This is the way the road goes.
Hmm?
This is the way the road goes, babe.
And yes, we fit. Every travel day needs some excitement, and this added some to it. A little further down, you'll see a bunch of tents. They actually closed the street, and they had a farmer's market going on the same time we went through.
Back there.
There's the Maritime Museum.
Okay. What's on this side?
Tugboat. A tugboat.
It's one we saw before, a big ship.
Yeah, look at this one.
And yes, Astoria has a very large maritime museum. It's well known, and we spotted it as we went through. Unfortunately, we did not have the time to stop. So a little bit about the Columbia River Gorge as we traveled its extent. It's a National Scenic Area, stretches 85 miles on both sides of one of the largest waterways on the continent. Protected by the National Scenic Act of 1986. The region is home to an incredible combination of scenic, spectacular landscapes, rare plants, wildlife, recreational opportunities, farmland, ancient Indian rock art, and other cultural and historical sites. It's important to note the change in scenery and climate as we move away from the lush green of the coast to the extremely dry drought-stricken interior along the Columbia River. It's amazing to watch it change as we go. So we left the coast, went through the small city of Astoria, and now we get to go through Portland. Route 30 comes in, hits Interstate 5 for a few miles, and then makes the turn onto Interstate 84. Interstate 84 picks up right in the middle of downtown. Luck was with us, as we did not get stuck in any traffic jams. Fortunately, the route we took just picked up a little bit of 5. 5 was busy, but we got through with very little delay. It's a very remarkable difference as we work our way out of the city of Portland. We left the shores, the open shores of the Pacific, went through the woodlands, lush green, through the city, and now we work our way up along the 84 corridor. Leaving Portland, we follow the river along 84 as it winds along the banks and gradually climbs the cliffs and hills that border the river. There are numerous parks and waterfalls along this route. However, we did not have the time to explore them on this trip. You'll start to notice here just how brown the grass is on both sides of the highway, even though we're alongside a river. go up 84 along the river, you'll notice a number of attractions. There's falls and a few parks and a few pull-offs. The interesting thing is the pull-offs are located in the center median, so it's accessed from both ways. They actually have signs as to how much room is in those way ahead of the actual pull-off. We've left a lot of this drive intact. I've sped it up to like 3 times normal speed, but it's a beautiful drive. As you get further along, you start to see more and more cliffs. The river gets tighter and tighter, and it's just a spectacular view as you work your way up through. The river itself is navigable, so you'll see barges and ships and boats and fishermen. A lot of activity going on the river as you work your way up. I mentioned we're going to be staying at a Harvest Host. The Harvest Host that we're headed for is up at the Columbia River Discovery Center. It's located at what they call the Dalles. This is the second time we've stayed at a location called the Dalles. We stayed at the Dalles in Wisconsin, on the Wisconsin River back in June on our way out. The Dalles is a French term given by the trappers as a location of steep cliffs bordering a river. The term is apt relation of the cliffs bordering both sides of the Columbia where the museum is located. For those of you that may not be aware of what Harvest Host is, it is a service that you can join, and it provides a whole list of places you can stay overnight for free. It only allows you one night. It's dry camping. Lots of times it's museums, golf courses, wineries, breweries. Churches have gotten into it now, and it's a really nice place to be able to pull up for one night and not spend a lot of money. They're also very convenient because you can find them on the app looking between places, and there's a selection that you can pick from and then contact them and get a response as to whether you can stay. Both sides of the river have railroads that are very busy, right along the edge of the water. It provides a good access for trains without being very steep, and you see some very long trains and lots of tunnels. In addition, the river, it looks placid here if you watch it as we go along. It is very navigable, but in days gone by, there were rapids, there were falls, all sorts of challenges that Lewis and Clark expedition had to overcome. It's now been dammed, and it's used for hydropower, it's used for locks, and it gives an assortment of ways for boating and transportation to access all the way up the river.
on the right to I-84, then take the first right.
Discovery Center and Museum. Right there. And our parking is going to be right here in this lot, where that guy is. The Dalles, okay. Look at how brown that is.
Bet you anything we got that.
Turn right on River Road, then take the first right.
I'm going to leave this part in so you can actually see how to get to the Discovery Center.
Yep.
It's a little bit of an interesting
Looks like we
drive.
would fit underneath.
Probably.
If they have diesel, I don't know.
I would guess they would.
Some of
Question
them
is
did,
how
and some
much.
of them didn't.
Turn right at the stop sign.
Yes, ma'am.
529.
Historic Oregon 30. Cool, they got something up on top of that.
Oh. What's
A
that?
tripod.
Looks like somebody
In
built a
1.25
Christmas tree.
miles, turn right on Discovery Drive. In 1/2 mile, arrive at 5000 Discovery Drive on the right.
Where did I get us in? Oh. It's the
In 400 feet, arrive at 5000 Discovery Drive on the right.
RV straight
To the
down.
right.
The Discovery Center is pretty easy to find once you get to the end of the road. Has a pretty good parking lot that's wide enough to navigate, and you go right straight up to the entrance and check in. The museum is a great place to stay. The staff is very accommodating, and we're able to take advantage of the museum and the trails. Ordinarily, you park in the lower parking lot, but they were very easy to accommodate and told us we could park further up in the parking lot. There is very little traffic that day, and so you'll see where we eventually wound up. It was a ways away that way from the highway. One of the things they highlight is you're supposed to be here before the museum closes, which is 5 o'clock. We were there probably around 2:30, something along those lines, and had no problem with that. However, there were a number of other campers that came in well after they were closed and basically found their own spots to land. This is our setup for the evening. As I mentioned, there's some great trails, some great museum exhibits outside of the museum, and it was just a great place to look around. Here's kind of a demonstration of what the entire gorge looks like. We had a beautiful view once you walked out behind the museum, up and down the entire river. One of the things you'll notice is that this area was under extreme drought, and we are starting to pick up the telltale smoke from wildfires up in the mountains of Oregon and Washington State. Just below us in the Dalles, they had locks that allow boats, ships to go up and down through the various different elevations. So it was interesting to watch. The Discovery Center is located at the eastern gateway to the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. The museum is home to numerous exhibits and help introduce visitors to geology, flora, fauna, history, economic development of the gorge. At the very beginning of the museum, it starts off with a lot of artifacts from the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Oh, the medicine chest. Pretty neat. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves.
This display documents Indian presence as purchased by Lewis in preparation for the expedition to the west. In a secret message to Congress on July 18, 1803, President Jefferson had asked for $2,500 to explore lands west of the Pacific. Jefferson worked closely with Lewis, the co-commander of the expedition, to ensure that he was well prepared to anticipate the party's needs. While the party ran out of such luxuries as whiskey, tobacco, and salt, they had plenty of rifles, powder, paper, and ink. It was pretty interesting to note what was worth what in terms of bartering, and in particular how valuable a horse was. It could be traded for a saber, which again is a pretty valuable commodity. Lewis and Clark also documented the process for bartering with the Indians and the ceremony that was supposed to result in order to gain those results. The ceremony was repeated over and over every time they met a new band of Indians. What was more interesting on this particular exhibit was it dealt with more of the practicality of the expedition as opposed to the larger picture. So what was worth what, how they learned different things they had to learn to survive, and the tactics that they were able to pick up from the inhabitants as they moved across the country. Here they're comparing a modern USGS map with the maps that they developed. As they moved across the country, they had to learn the ways of fishing and procuring protein. They learned quickly from what the Indians had adapted and how best to survive as they did. They also learned from the original boats they started out with to the best ways to make and build their transportation. Hollowed out logs, sailboats, rowing, that sort of thing. They learned what different animals were available, some they had never seen before, some they documented, and how to best use their furs, skin them, and what was available based on what the local inhabitants were using. They also learned to adapt to store their food and the best ways to preserve their gunpowder using powder horns, that sort of thing.
Carrying all that stuff or trudging through.
No.
What they brought with them were in lead canisters. Unfortunately, we all know the issues with lead, and it didn't help them as they were living out of these things. This was a really good example of how they carved canoes out of the trunks of trees. Something they had to pick up way back in the middle of the country when they couldn't carry their large boats with them anymore.
Where do you want to go next?
So the museum is a large place. It's got a beautiful center atrium, and then the different exhibits branch off.
This one or the next one down?
This is some sort of program that's playing.
They've got a private thing going on.
Yeah.
So the museum really demonstrates the geology and the weather of the Columbia Gorge. It talks about the ice age that impacted and the ice age floods that carved this region. It talks about the weather and how this particular gorge affects the weather. And then they have an exhibit that also demonstrates the flora and the fauna, the animals of the gorge over the millennium, and how they developed and what grows here. It talks about the Ice Age, Snowball Earth, and how this region was formed. The museum itself is recognized internationally as the destination for exploring the natural beauty and cultural richness of the Pacific Northwest. It's located on 5000 Discovery Drive in the Dalles. It's open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's closed on major holidays. Admission is $10 for general, $8 for seniors, $5 for ages 6 to 16, and it is free under 5. They also do raptor demonstrations on request for groups. It appears to be much in demand. And they also have a place out in the back of it that they keep owls periodically that can be seen by the public. There's a whole section devoted to the indigenous people and the First Nations of this region. It goes quite in depth and you see quite a bit. As the museum moves on, it goes in and talks about the transportation, the movement westward as this region was discovered, how was developed, and the different modes of transportation and the effect it had on the region. As I mentioned before, the river has been dammed up and has been used for hydropower throughout the region with various locks. There's a number of hydroelectric plants, and it generates a tremendous amount of power through the entire length of the Columbia River Gorge. The last section of the museum has a number of dioramas that highlight what various shops and buildings and ways of life were developed throughout this region over the last century or two. The development of the railroads had a huge impact on this region, and it still does to this day. Farmers developed the use of wind power, and to keep their cattle in a range that they could keep track of them, they used barbed wire. And obviously horses were the main means to keep them in line. Any museum needs to end with some good, practical advice that you can keep. And this one is no different. Advice from a moose. Think big. Spend time in the woods. Eat plenty of greens. Hold your head up high. Stay on track. Keep your nose clean. And it's okay to be a little wild. Please subscribe, and we'll see you around the bend.